To secure a life of absolute luxury, I spent 7 straight days playing cards with God at the gates of reincarnation. Deliberately losing every last bit of good karma I'd accumulated in my past life. By the end of our 3000th game, the old man finally flashed a satisfied grin and slipped me a magic potion to retain my memories. But just as I triumphantly downed the liquid, a sudden vision flashed in my mind. 18 years later, a girl would show up crying at our door, claiming to be my parents' real daughter. Alarm bells instantly went off in my head. I had sacrificed everything for this life of luxury, and I wasn't about to let anyone snatch it away from me. With a loud, healthy cry, I was finally born. But when I opened my eyes, I wasn't greeted by loving parents. Instead, I saw a shifty-looking woman, seizing a moment when no one was looking. She quickly swapped me with the baby in the basket next to mine. Watching her turn to leave, I panicked and began to wail at the top of my lungs. Fortunately, my frantic crying drew the attention of the head nurse on duty. She picked me up, frowning slightly as she muttered about the baby's registered weight not matching. After a quick reweighing, the baby's switching plot was exposed. Hearing the nurses talk in hushed, frightened tones about the immense power of the Sullivan group, I let out a sigh of relief. Weight on my chest finally lifted. Once I was safely returned to the Sullivan family, I became the absolute apple of their eye. Named Ariana. My 2 older brothers spoiled me rotten. My eldest brother, Alex, was a business prodigy running the family empire at a young age. Cold and aloof to the world, he reserved all his warmth for me. My second brother, Zachary, was a massive pop star. Despite his hectic schedule and bubbly personality, he once cancelled all his media appearances just to stay by my side in the hospital overnight when I got food poisoning. Wrapped in their unconditional love, I grew up without a single care in the world until I turned 18. On the night of my 18th birthday party, the grand ballroom was dripping in gold, packed with high society. My grandfather handed me the keys to a luxury sports car. Alex presented the deed to a villa in a prime location, and Zachary offered a custom designer handbag. Alex affectionately ruffled my hair, promising he would protect me and keep me safe for the rest of my life. Just as I was basking in my family's warmth, the heavy doors of the ballroom were slammed open. A plainly dressed girl burst in, her eyes locked onto the priceless necklace around my neck, dripping with pure, undisguised envy. I'm the real Sullivan heiress. Ariana is an imposter. Chloe Brown. She had finally shown up right on schedule. The room erupted into chaos. Dozens of judgmental eyes locked onto my father. Panicking, my dad waved his hands frantically, desperate to explain that he had never had an illegitimate child. Taking in the chaotic scene, I secretly pinched my thigh. Tears flooded my eyes instantly, and I threw myself into my mother's arms, looking entirely devastated. Heartbroken for me, my mother rubbed my back while demanding answers from Chloe in a freezing tone. Everyone's shocked. Chloe suddenly lost it. She snatched a glass of red wine from a nearby table and flung it straight at my face, though I instinctively dodged. The deep red liquid still dripped down my hair, leaving an unsightly, glaring stain on my snow-white gown. My fists clenched as anger flared inside me, furious. My father roared at Chloe for her utter lack of manners. Chloe bit her lip, looking aggrieved, and tried to grab my father's sleeve, sobbing out the truth of how she had been swapped at birth. My mother and Alex stood protectively in front of me, ready for a fight. As all eyes remained glued to Chloe, I realized someone was missing. Where was my second brother? A second later, the ballroom doors swung open. Again, Zachary, who had slipped away unnoticed, walked back in with a grim expression. His gaze swept over me before landing on Chloe. He took a deep breath and spoke slowly. Mom, Dad, stop this. Chloe is my real sister. We've owed her too much already. We can't keep living a lie. A jolt went through my body. Never in a million years did I expect the first person to turn on me would be the brother who had always spoiled me the most. Chloe's aggressive attitude vanished in an instant. With red, teary eyes, she nervously tugged at the hem of her shirt. I'm sorry, Mom, Dad. My life has just been so hard, and seeing you both so suddenly, I lost control of my emotions, playing the fragile victim. She made it look like I was the one bullying her. My mother's brow furrowed as she fixed Zachary with a cold stare. Zach, you knew about this. Did you orchestrate this scene today? Zachary avoided her gaze. Looking guilty, he hesitated before replying. I suspected it the first time I met her. She was wearing the necklace I personally gave to my baby sister. All those years ago. A chill ran down my spine. It all clicked. Back when the switch happened in the nursery, a young Zach had snuck in and placed a custom necklace on the other baby girl. I never would have guessed that his childhood gesture would become the proof that I wasn't a biological Sullivan. Seeing my silence, Chloe took it as a confession of guilt. A smug glint flashed in her eyes. See, she has nothing to say. She's been living my life for 18 years. It's time to give it back. My parents looked deeply torn, caught between emotions. Seizing the moment, Zachary chimed in. Chloe has suffered so much out there, we can't just shut her out. She should move in with us immediately. Don't be ridiculous. Alex snapped, pinching the bridge of his nose in exhaustion. How can she just move in before we verified anything? Send her to the suburban estate for now. We wait until the DNA results are in. But Zachary was determined to protect Chloe, even arguing back at Alex. Looking at the sobbing Chloe, my mother's heart softened with a heavy sigh. She compromised enough. Both of you, they will both stay here, but Ariana is the daughter I have loved for 18 years. No one is kicking her out. But this imposter has been living off our wealth for 18 years. Why does she get to stay? Zachary raised his voice, his eyes filled with disgust, directed entirely at me. Looking at my brother's sneering face, my heart shattered. Whenever our parents punished him when we were kids, I was always the one who stood in front of him without hesitation. Now, for a girl he had barely met, he was ripping my world apart. Just as I was about to confront him, Alex's booming voice broke the tension. Enough, Ariana is staying. Anyone who has a problem with that can pack their bags and leave. Under Alex's commanding authority, Zachary reluctantly shut his mouth. It would take a week for the DNA results to come back. During that week, with Zachary backing her up, Chloe didn't just move into the Sullivan mansion. With her head held high, she also transferred to my high school. On her very first day, rumors about my true identity spread like wildfire. Girls who used to kiss up to me immediately jumped ship to brown-nosed Chloe. Some people love playing the princess on someone else's dime. Now that she's been exposed, she still won't leave. Talk about thick-skinned, sneered a girl whom I had once rejected. When she tried to social climb through me, I let out a cold laugh, preparing to clap back, but my best friend Lily stepped in front of me first. Crossing her arms, she shot the girl a look of pure disdain. Maybe you should read a book sometime. Until the DNA results are out, Ariana is still the sullen heiress. Who do you think you are, barking like a loyal dog for a new master? Watching the girl turn bright red and scurry away in embarrassment, I gratefully squeezed Lily's arm. Lily turned to me, her eyes filled with concern. Even if you aren't a sullen, I can easily support you, but seriously, this Chloe girl has some tricks up her sleeve. Not only did she steal your brother, but she's also going after your fiancé. Hearing the word fiancé made the smile freeze on my face. Lucas Shaw, the man I was betrothed to through an arranged family alliance. I had thought our engagement was set in stone, but I hadn't expected Chloe to go after him too. No need to look for us, we're right here. Chloe's sweet, sickening voice rang out. I looked over and saw her clinging to Lucas Shaw's arm, walking toward me with a smug, provocative look on her face. Why? I demanded, looking at the utterly unapologetic expression on Lucas's face. Lucas sneered, his eyes filled with disdain. Ariana, I've been sick of your high and mighty pure act routine. For a long time you wouldn't even let me touch you. What kind of fiancé does that? Chloe is way more understanding and sweet than you'll ever be. Chloe feigned embarrassment and playfully covered his mouth, but the triumph in her eyes was impossible to hide. See, Ariana, everyone who used to be yours actually prefers me. How do you still have the nerve to stick around? Looking at her punchable, gloating face, my anger boiled over. I raised my hand, ready to slap her across the face. It's out, the DNA results are out. Suddenly Zachary's excited shout echoed down the hallway, instantly drawing everyone's attention. I froze, lowered my hand and marched over to him, snatching the heavy manila envelope right out of his hands. The crisp manila envelope was already warm from Zachary's sweaty grip, but the seal was unbroken. Around us, the high school corridor had ground to a dead halt. Locker doors hung open. The circle of spectators, half of whom had spent the morning trading vicious whispers about my downfall, held their collective breath. Lucas Shaw stood half a step behind Chloe, his hand resting possessively on her waist, his chin tilted up with the arrogant assurance of a man convinced he had backed the winning horse. Chloe leaned into him, her bottom lip quivering in a well-rehearsed display of vulnerable innocence, though her eyes were laser-focused on the paper in my hands. Go on, open it, Zachary urged, his chest heaving, his eyes shining with the Manic righteousness of a savior who had finally delivered justice. Let's end this circus. Ariana, no one is going to throw you into the street. I've already spoken to Dad about setting up a trust fund for your basic living expenses. But Chloe deserves her name back. A trust fund for basic living expenses? I echoed, my voice smooth, chillingly steady. I looked at Zachary, really looked at him, the pop sensation adored by millions, the boy who used to beg me to hide his failing report cards from our father, the brother whose late-night hospital vigil I had once treasured like gold. How fragile fraternal love turned out to be when polished by a layer of self-righteous vanity. How remarkably generous of you, Zach. Ariana, don't be bitter, Lucas cut in, his tone dripping with condescension. Zachary is doing you a favor. You lived 18 years of a stolen life. A little humility would look better on you than that sour expression. Lily took a furious step forward, her fists balling, but I raised my hand slightly, stopping her. Humility is for people who have something to apologize for, I said softly. With a swift, deliberate rip, I tore the top edge of the envelope off. The sound of tearing paper was the only noise in the corridor. Chloe's breath hitched. She squeezed Lucas's arm tighter, her knuckles widening. I slid the folded document out. The official header of the St. Jude Genetic Diagnostics Institute gleamed under the fluorescent lights. Zachary had paid extra for the expedited 3-day turnaround, complete with the gold foil verification stamp. My eyes skimmed past the legal boilerplate, past the locus markers and allele frequencies, straight to the summary paragraph at the bottom of page 3. I didn't blink. I didn't gasp. A slow, razor-sharp smile curled the corners of my mouth. Well? Zachary demanded, stepping closer, reaching out as if to snatch the paper. What does it say? Instead of answering, I turned the final page around and held it up flat against my palm, right in front of Zachary's eyes. Probability of biological parentage between subject Richard Sullivan, Eleanor Sullivan, and subject Ariana Sullivan, 99.999%. Probability of biological parentage between subject Richard Sullivan, Eleanor Sullivan, and subject Chloe Brown, 0.000%. Zachary's eyes darted frantically across the text. His pupils shrank to pinpricks. No, wait. That's impossible. You read it wrong. Let me see that. He snatched the paper from my fingers, his hands shaking so violently that the parchment rattled like dry leaves. No. No, this can't be right. Chloe was wearing the silver acorn pendant. I bought that pendant in Milan when I was 7 years old. I slipped it onto the cot myself. You idiot, I said, every word hitting with the weight of an iron hammer. 18 years ago, a woman tried to switch me with another baby in the maternity ward. I cried. The head nurse realized the weight was wrong, caught the switch before the thief even made it to the elevator, and put me right back in my bassinet. Whatever shiny trinket you dropped on the decoy baby went out the front door with the kidnapper's kid. A collective, suffocating gasp rippled through the hallway. The blood drained from Chloe's face so fast she turned the color of curdled milk. Her fingers slipped from Lucas's arm as if all strength had abandoned her joints. No. Mom told me. My mother said I was the Sullivan daughter, she swore to me on her deathbed. Your mother was a petty criminal who tried to swap her sickly infant into a billionaire dynasty and failed, I said, stepping into Chloe's personal space. She instinctively shrank back, but there was nowhere to go, the lockers cold against her spine. She raised you on lies and bitterness because every time she looked at you, she was reminded of the fortune she was too clumsy to steal. Lucas looked as if someone had shoved a handful of ash down his throat. His face alternated between sickly green and furious crimson. He looked down at Chloe. Then up at me, his mouth opening and closing like a stranded fish. Ariana. Lucas stammered, taking an instinctive step toward me, his hands half raised in a pleading gesture. Ariana, listen to me. I was misled. Chloe came to me with Zach, they had family heirlooms, they were so certain. I only wanted to protect the family honor. Save it, Lucas, Lily sneered, stepping up beside me with a laugh of pure venom. 5 minutes ago you were whining that Ariana wouldn't let you touch her. And that Chloe was understanding and sweet. Go on, take your sweet little imposter to the cafeteria. Maybe she can pay for your lunch with her stolen pendant. Shut up. Lucas snapped, but his authority was utterly shattered. He turned back to me, desperation bleeding through his polished veneer. Ariana, we have an engagement contract signed by our fathers. Our family's merger will proceed without you, a voice boomed from the end of the hall. The crowd parted instantly, scattering like pigeons before a hawk. Alex stood there. He hadn't even taken off his overcoat. He wore a charcoal bespoke three-piece suit, his hair swept back, his posture radiating the absolute, crushing authority of the Sullivan Group's reigning chief executive. Behind him walked two stone-faced corporate security guards and the Sullivan family's chief legal counsel, Mr. Vance. Alex didn't look at Chloe. He didn't look at Lucas. He walked straight up to me, removed his cashmere scarf, and draped it around my shoulders with meticulous, tender care. Are you all right? He asked quietly. I'm fine, Alex, I said. Just taking out the trash. Alex nodded once, satisfied. Then, he turned to face the corridor. When Alex's gaze landed on Zachary, it was so frigid that my second brother visibly flinched, tucking his chin toward his chest like a whipped dog. Alex, Zachary tried to speak, his voice cracking. I really thought. Pack your things, Alex said, his tone flat, devoid of anger, which made it 10 times more terrifying. You're off the family estate by tonight. What? Zachary gasped, his eyes widening in horror. Alex, I'm your brother. I made a mistake, I was trying to do the right thing for the family. You publicly humiliated your sister at her 18th birthday gala, Alex said, each syllable slicing through the air like a scalpel. You brought an unverified stranger into our home, gave her access to our private quarters, and weaponized your celebrity platform to cast doubt on your own blood. You didn't do this for the family, Zachary. You did it because you fancy yourself the noble hero in a soap opera. Alex turned slightly, gesturing to Mr. Vance. Effective immediately, Zachary's entertainment company shares will be frozen, pending an internal audit of misappropriated family funds used for his independent PR campaigns. The Sullivan Group will also terminate all brand endorsements tied to his current tour. Zachary swayed on his feet, turning as white as paper. Alex, you can't ruin my career over this. Dad won't let you. Dad had a heart palpitation this morning because of the news leaks you orchestrated, Alex replied ruthlessly. He signed over full power of attorney to me at 8 o'clock this morning. You're done, Zach. Alex then shifted his gaze to Lucas Shaw. Lucas stood paralyzed, sweat beading along his hairline. Alex. Mr. Sullivan. This is a misunderstanding between young people. Ariana and I have years of history. Mr. Shaw, Alex interrupted, not even granting him the dignity of using his first name. At 9:15 today, Sullivan Holdings acquired 32% of your father's outstanding debt obligations from the Meridian Credit Consortium. By 3 this afternoon, we will call in the short-term loans. Lucas choked. You're calling our loans? That will liquidate our shipping division. Then I suggest you run home and tell your father to start selling his yachts. Alex said coldly. Because as of this second, the Shaw family does not exist to the Sullivans. Finally, Alex looked at Chloe. She was trembling from head to foot, tears streaming down her cheeks, smearing her cheap mascara into gray tracks. As for you, Alex said, his voice dropping an octave into pure menace. Mr. Vance has already filed criminal charges for fraud, extortion, and defamation. The police are waiting outside the administration office. No, please. Chloe shrieked, suddenly dropping to her knees on the linoleum floor, lunging forward to grab the hem of Alex's trousers. I was tricked. My mother lied to me. I didn't know. Zachary was the one who reached out to me on social media. He sent me money. He told me to come to the party. Zachary recoiled as if stung. Chloe? You told me you found the pendant in your mother's safety deposit box with our family crest on the box. You wanted to believe it so badly you fed me the details. Chloe screamed back, her veneer of delicate victimhood shattering into hysterical venom. You gave me the Sullivan family history. You told me what Ariana liked, what she wore, how She spoke. You built this, Zachary. You wanted a broken sister you could save. Not a sister who had everything. The silence in the hallway was absolute. Every single word echoed off the lockers, stripping Zachary bare before hundreds of his peers and fans. It wasn't just a mistake, it was an ego trip. Zachary had always been overshadowed by Alex's brilliant business mind and my effortless perfection. He had wanted an heiress who owed him her entire existence. I looked down at the two of them, the weeping fraud on the floor and the hollow pop star crumbling against the wall. 7 days of cards with God at the gates of reincarnation, I thought, a bitter, triumphant laugh echoing silently in my mind. I traded every scrap of spiritual virtue for this life. Did they really think a half-baked scheme from two narcissists could strip me of what I gambled my eternity to claim? I took a slow step forward, the click of my designer heels loud against the tiles. I stopped right in front of Chloe, looked down at her bowed head, and crouched until our eyes met. You wanted my life, I whispered, so softly only she, Lucas, and Zachary could hear. You wanted the pearls, the pedigree, the brothers, and the fiancé. But you forgot one simple rule of high society, Chloe. I reached out, hooked 2 fingers under her chin, and forced her face up to meet mine. You can steal the dress, but you can't buy the spine. Take her away. 2 security officers stepped forward, hauled Chloe to her feet by her arms, and dragged her toward the double doors. Her hysterical wails faded down the corridor, leaving behind only the heavy, suffocating weight of total ruin. I stood up, smoothed my skirt, and turned to Alex. Let's go home, I said. I have a birthday party to finish. The fallout did not take weeks, it took hours. When you sit at the absolute pinnacle of the financial food chain, destruction is not a storm that brews slowly on the horizon, it is an executioner's axe, dropped at the speed of light. By 2 o'clock that afternoon, the video clips recorded by high school students had flooded every corner of social media. The pristine, saintly image Zachary Sullivan had cultivated for 6 years as a chart-topping pop idol dissolved in real time. The hashtag Zachary Sullivan fraud sat at the top of the global trending list. Fans burned his concert merchandise on live streams, sponsors pulled their multi-million-dollar endorsement contracts with standardized press releases expressing deep regret and a commitment to family values. At the Sullivan estate, the atmosphere was suffocatingly quiet. In the grand drawing room, my father sat in his wingback armchair, an oxygen cannula resting beneath his nose, his face drawn and pale. My mother sat beside him on the velvet settee, a silk handkerchief clutched in her trembling fist, her eyes swollen from weeping. When I entered the room alongside Alex, my mother immediately rose to her feet, her hands reaching out to clasp mine. Ariana, my baby. She choked out, pulling me into a desperate, crushing embrace. The scent of French lavender and expensive powder enveloped me, laced with the sharp tang of pure maternal guilt. Forgive me. Forgive your foolish mother. When she walked in wearing that necklace, and Zachary was so certain, my heart broke thinking of a child suffering in the cold, and I lost my mind. I didn't pull away, but I didn't return the embrace with the warmth I used to offer so freely. I had learned an invaluable lesson in the ballroom 18 hours ago. Conditional love is the currency of the wealthy, and when the ledger looks unbalanced, even parents will hesitate. It's over, mother, I said gently, easing her back down onto the settee. The DNA is conclusive. The police are handling Chloe and her family. And Zachary, my father rasped, his voice trembling with a mixture of grief and fury. Where is that wretched boy? Waiting in the foyer, Alex said coldly, standing by the marble fireplace, his hands resting casually in his suit pockets. He isn't permitted to step on the living room rugs until you decide whether he spends the night in our guest house or a holding cell. Bring him in, father commanded. When Zachary walked into the drawing room, he looked like a ghost of the vibrant, glittering superstar who had performed for 60,000 people at the National Stadium 2 weeks ago. His designer jacket was wrinkled, his hair disheveled, his eyes bloodshot and hollow. He didn't dare look at Alex or father. He fell straight to his knees before mother's seat, burying his face in her lap. Mom. Mom, please, Zachary sobbed, his shoulders convulsing. I didn't know. I swear to God I didn't know Chloe was a liar. When she messaged me with a photo Of that necklace, I thought of that day in the hospital 18 years ago. I thought I had ruined a baby's life by giving away her only clue. I just wanted to fix it. You wanted to fix it? Father roared, slamming his open palm against the mahogany armrest of his chair. The sudden violence of the sound made Zachary leap back, cowering on the parquet floor. You bypassed the family legal team. You invited the press to your sister's debutante ball. You leaked rumors to the media to force our hand. You didn't want to fix anything, Zachary, you wanted to be the messiah on the 6 o'clock news. Dad. Silence. Father coughed, pressing a hand to his chest as Alex stepped forward, resting a steadying hand on Father's shoulder. The board met an hour ago, Alex stated flatly, looking down at our kneeling brother without a shred of pity. Your agency has been dissolved. Your management contract has been transferred to a restructuring firm. You will issue a public statement retiring from the entertainment industry due to health reasons, and you will step down from all Sullivan philanthropic boards. Zachary looked up, his jaw slack with disbelief. Retire? Alex, music is my life. It's all I have. You had a family, Alex replied, his voice dropping into a register of icy finality. And you traded Ariana's dignity to feed your savior complex. Be thankful I haven't let Mr. Vance add your name to the criminal conspiracy indictment against Chloe Brown. Ariana. Zachary turned to me, his hands reaching across the floor, his eyes begging for the sister who used to shield him from our parents' discipline. Ariana, please. You know me. Tell them. Tell Alex he can't do this to me. I'm your brother. Remember when you had food poisoning and I stayed by your bed all night? Remember the songs I wrote for you? I stood by the window, the afternoon sun casting a long, sharp shadow across the marble floor. I looked down at him, my heart perfectly calm, as flat and unyielding as a sheet of tempered glass. I remember, I said softly. And I also remember the look of pure disgust in your eyes when you called me an imposter who had lived off your wealth for 18 years. Zachary flinched as if struck by a whip. You gave me a custom designer bag for my birthday, Zach, I continued, tilting my head slightly. And 20 minutes later, you tried to throw me out into the gutter with nothing but the clothes on my back. If the DNA test had come back the other way, would you have listened to me begging on this floor? He had no answer. He lowered his head, his tears dripping onto the polished wood, silent and broken. Get out, I said. He didn't argue. He scrambled to his feet, stumbled through the grand archway, and let the heavy mahogany doors click shut behind him. The collapse of the Shaw family was even more spectacular. Lucas Shaw's father, Robert Shaw, arrived at the Sullivan corporate headquarters at 8 o'clock the following morning. He spent 3 hours in the executive waiting lounge, sweating through his custom shirt, begging the receptionist for 5 minutes with Alex. He didn't get Alex. He got me. When I stepped into the high-floor conference room, flanked by 2 Sullivan Group senior vice presidents and Mr. Vance, Robert Shaw practically leaped across the glass table. Ariana. My dear girl. Robert cried, his hands outstretched, his face contorted into an oily, desperate smile. Thank God you're here. This whole business. It's a terrible, childish tragedy. Lucas was an absolute fool. I have already stripped him of his credit cards and his sports cars. He is waiting downstairs right now, on his knees, ready to beg for your forgiveness. I took the seat at the head of the conference table, crossing one elegant leg over the other, resting my chin lightly on my interlaced fingers. Sit down, Mr. Shaw, I said. Robert Shaw blinked, momentarily thrown off by the absolute lack of teenage warmth in my voice, but he hastily pulled a chair out and sat. Ariana, the Shaw-Sullivan shipping merger is critical for both our houses. Robert rushed on, pulling a handkerchief to wipe his brow. Our families have been allies for 3 generations. A silly squabble over an engagement shouldn't destroy billions in maritime trade. 3 generations of alliance, I mused, tapping a single manicured nail against the polished glass. And yet, the moment a girl in a thrift store sweater walked into my ballroom claiming to be the heiress, your son jumped into her bed before the ice in my champagne glass had even melted. He was seduced. He was manipulated by that scheming witch. He was greedy, I corrected, my tone dropping to 0 degrees. Lucas thought Chloe would be a pliant, insecure heiress whom he could dominate and control. Whereas I was too high and mighty because I refused to let him treat me like a trophy. He gambled on an easy puppet, Mr. Shaw. And in high-stakes gambling, when you bet wrong, the house takes your chips. Mr. Vance slid a thick stack of legal documents across the table. What is this? Robert Shaw asked, his hands trembling as he touched the paper. The formal acceleration of the Meridian credit loans, Mr. Vance explained calmly. Sullivan Holdings is demanding immediate repayment of $94 million within 48 hours. Furthermore, Miss Sullivan has instructed us to liquidate all Shaw Logistics commercial paper held in our private family trusts. $94 million in 48 hours? Robert's voice squeaked, his eyes bulging. That's impossible. We'd have to declare bankruptcy. We'd lose the fleet. Then you'd better start calling auction houses, Mr. Shaw, I said, rising smoothly from my chair. You have 47 hours and 50 minutes left. Ariana, please. Robert cried, lunging around the table, but the two security guards instantly stepped between us, their broad frames blocking him completely. Think of the past. Think of Lucas. He loved you. I stopped at the double glass doors, turning back just enough to look at him. Over my shoulder. Lucas loved the Sullivan name, I said. Tell him that if he ever shows his face within 100 yards of me again, I won't just take his fleet. I'll take his father's house. I walked out of the boardroom without looking back. Down in the marble lobby of the Sullivan Tower, Lucas Shaw was indeed waiting. He sat slumped on a leather bench near the revolving doors, looking haggard. Clutching a massive bouquet of rare white peonies, my favorite flowers. When he saw me emerge from the private executive elevator, he surged forward. His face lighting up with pathetic, desperate hope. Ariana. Ariana, wait. The lobby guards moved to intercept him, but I raised 2 fingers, signaling them to hold. Lucas stopped 3 paces away, panting, thrusting the massive arrangement of flowers toward me like a shield. Ariana, look, I bought the peonies you love. From the botanical imports. I know I was an idiot. I let Chloe's sob story cloud my judgment. But it was always you. I only ever wanted you. I looked at the lush white blossoms, then looked up into his handsome, hollow face. Do you know why I never let you touch me, Lucas? I asked softly. He blinked, caught off guard. What? Because even before Chloe showed up, I could smell the rot on you, I said. Stepping closer, my voice carrying clearly across the quiet, cavernous lobby. You are weak. You are vain. You are the kind of man who thinks loyalty is an optional accessory you wear when the sun is shining and discard the second the wind blows. I reached out, took a single white peony from the bunch, and snapped the thick stem between 2 fingers with an audible crack. I dropped the broken blossom onto the polished floor and crushed it beneath the pointed heel of my Christian Louboutin pump. Take your flowers and your ruined family, Lucas, I said, brushing invisible dust from my jacket. And get out of my building. 3 weeks later, the criminal trial of Chloe Brown and her accomplice mother made the front pages of every legal gazette in the country. The investigation had moved with terrifying speed. Under intense interrogation from the federal prosecutor's office, Chloe's mother had broken down entirely, confessing that she had kept tabs on the Sullivan family for 18 years, saving every scrap of tabloid news about Zachary's public statements. When Zachary had mentioned his childhood guilt about the lost baby during an emotional podcast interview 2 years prior, the mother had recognized her golden ticket. She had forged birth documents, coached Chloe on every detail of the Sullivan household, and sent her daughter into the fray with the stolen pendant as their battering ram. Chloe was sentenced to 7 years in a state correctional facility for felony fraud and extortion. Her mother received 12. Zachary had vanished from the public eye entirely. Rumors circulated that he was living in a secluded villa in the Swiss Alps, stripped of his fortune, barred from the family business, spending his days in bitter, solitary obscurity. That night, after the final court decree was signed, I sat alone on the massive balcony of my penthouse suite overlooking the glittering skyline of the capital. A glass of vintage Romanée-Conti rested in my hand. The cool autumn breeze ruffled the sheer curtains behind me, carrying the distant, rhythmic hum of the metropolis below, a city where my family's name was carved into skyscrapers, bridges, and banks. I closed my eyes and took a slow sip of the wine. Suddenly, the ambient hum of the city ceased. The wind froze mid-gust. The twinkling city lights below locked into static, motionless points of luminescence. The wine in my glass stopped swirling, suspended in a glassy tilt. A rather bloody trail for an 18-year-old girl, wouldn't you say? A raspy, amused voice echoed from the shadowed corner of the terrace. I didn't jump. I didn't drop my glass. I opened my eyes, slowly turned my head, and looked at the old man sitting casually on the marble balustrade, swinging his legs over a 300-foot drop. He wore a patched, faded linen coat, his white beard wild and unkempt, a battered deck of playing cards shuffling itself between his gnarled fingers with a soft, rhythmic shk. You're late, I said coolly. I expected you on my 18th birthday. Ah, but you were busy dodging red wine and family drama, the old man chuckled, spreading the deck into an impossible glowing fan in the air before snapping it back into his palm. I didn't want to interrupt the performance. You played a magnificent hand, Ariana. Truly ruthless. I played the hand you dealt me, I replied, taking another sip of wine. I traded 7 lifetimes of accumulated good karma at the gates of reincarnation. I gave you every prayer, every charity, every saintly deed I ever performed. Across 300 years of past lives, just to sit on this balcony with this name and this wealth. The old man's eyes twinkled with ancient, unfathomable amusement. And when you drank my memory potion, I showed you the vision of the girl who would come to take it all. Tell me, did you ever wonder why? Because you're a cheat, I said without hesitation. Gods don't give away absolute luxury for free, even for 7 days of card games. You wanted to see if I would fold under the pressure of cosmic irony. You gave me the kingdom, and then you sent the wolf to see if I had the teeth to keep it. The old man threw back his head and roared with laughter, a sound like rolling thunder that vibrated through the frozen air without disturbing a single leaf on the terrace plants. Smart girl, he grinned, leaning forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Most souls who trade their virtue for wealth become soft. They drown in silk and sugar. They think luxury is an armor that protects them from the world. But you understood from the second you drew your first breath that wealth is not an armor. Wealth is a weapon, I said flatly. And if you don't hold it by the hilt, someone else will slit your throat with the blade. Indeed, the old man murmured, his smile fading into a look of profound, chilling respect. You have 0 good karma left in the cosmic ledger, Ariana Sullivan. No guardian angels will watch over your sleep. No lucky stars will guide your steps. Every victory you claim in this life must be bought with your own cunning and defended with your own steel. Good, I said, setting my wine glass down on the stone table with a sharp, resonant ring. I never liked relying on charity anyway. The old man stared at me for a long, silent moment. Then, he tapped the deck of cards against his knuckles and tipped an invisible hat. Then live your life of absolute luxury, Ariana. Let us see how high you can build your tower before the world dares to challenge you again. With a sudden, soft snap of fingers, the old man vanished into thin air. The wind roared back to life, whipping the silk curtains around my shoulders. The city lights below flared with dazzling, kinetic energy. The wine settled smoothly in the crystal glass. 2 years later, the grand imperial ballroom of the capital's finest hotel was, once again, dripping in gold. Tonight was the annual Sullivan Foundation Gala, celebrating the formal merger of the Sullivan Group with the Transatlantic Maritime Consortium, the very trade lanes that had once belonged to the now-defunct Shaw Logistics. The room was packed with prime ministers, oil barons, tech titans, and old money royalty. Every eye in the room was fixed on the grand marble staircase at the back of the hall. The orchestra struck a magnificent, sweeping chord. Alex Sullivan stepped out first. Older, sharper, his presence dominating the room like an absolute monarch. He walked down 3 steps, paused, and turned, extending his gloved hand upward. A hand slipped into his. I stepped into the light. My gown was spun from midnight black silk velvet, encrusted with tens of thousands of microscopic black diamonds that caught the chandelier light like a starless, predatory night sky. Around my neck hung no silver acorns, no sentimental childhood trinkets, only the legendary heart of the abyss, a 50-carat sapphire acquired at a Sotheby's private auction for $40 million, resting against my collarbone like a badge of absolute conquest. Beside the staircase, standing among the high society matrons who had once whispered vicious gossip behind their fans, Lily raised her champagne flute to me with a beaming, radiant smile. I didn't smile back with warmth. I offered the room a slow, dangerous, sovereign tilt of my head. At the bottom of the stairs, a young junior associate from an international hedge fund leaned over to his senior partner, whispering in awe, "Is that her? The Sullivan heiress? I heard rumors about a scandal years ago, an imposter, a disgraced brother, a fiancé who lost everything." The senior partner took a slow sip of his whiskey, his eyes locked on my descent with unmistakable reverence and fear. "Don't ever repeat those rumors in this room," the older man warned in a hushed, stern voice. "That girl didn't inherit the Sullivan empire. She conquered it. Cross her path, and she won't just break your career, she'll buy your debts and wipe your name off the map." I reached the ballroom floor, my arm linked in Alex's, the sea of billionaires and aristocrats parting before us like water before the prow of a dreadnought. I looked out over the glittering crowd, over the wealth, the power, and the endless, beautiful machinery of human ambition. I had given up heaven for this. And as I raised my glass to the room, drinking in the sweet, intoxicating air of absolute dominion, I knew with absolute, unwavering certainty I had gotten every single penny's worth.